Yes, hello everyone. In this video, let us today look at field properties in database, which I use it to determine the fields that we create or that we use in database tables. When you look at these field properties, this is the lower part of the table design view, which is used to make additional settings for a given data type. The properties of a field changes according to the data type, that once you click on that field, field properties such as the field size, its description is always displayed on the right. So these field properties are very vital when we are creating database tables. We have a number of them, and let us look at a few of those important field properties that we use when we are creating database tables. The first field, we have the field size. The field size, this is the value of the field which determines the maximum number of characters that can be typed in a text field. Now, let us consider this table that I created. We use it when we are relating to our field properties. For example, when you look at this table design view, this is my table that I created, and this is our design view. Let's say we deal with the names, and we are basing on the field size. So when you look at down here under this property, I have 20, which means the maximum number of characters that I'll type in this field name will only be 20, not exceeding 20 characters. So this is where we apply the field size as the field property basing on the database table. So this is an example that when you're entering names, they will only contain 20 characters, not exceeding 20. So that is an example of a field size according to the field property. Then the next field property is format. The format is always determined by the set of layout of data in a field, such as the date or time, the number, or even the currency, basing on the field property, that is format. For example, when you look at the date, for example, let us use an example of this format according to our field property format, and we are basing on the date of birth. So when I come here according to the format that I want, and say the format is going to run, say I would consider the date, and then I consider the month, and then the year according to my format. So this is the format that once I enter in the date of birth field, it runs with this format. So let us see how it will run according to our field property, that is format. So when I say 22nd, let's say October, I'll just put in a value say 2021. So when I press enter, this is how it runs according to my format, according to the date, the month, the date, the month, followed by the year. So that is how that format is used. Or we can also consider it, use it on the basic salary. For example, according to our table, let's say we're dealing with the currency here, and say the currency will run with a format. Let's say it runs with the currency, Ugandan currency, and it will be represented with a comma. So when we run this, of course, we need to first save the changes. So when we begin entering in here the currency, for example, this currency, it will come with a currency symbol. So whenever you're entering in any currency in your table, it runs with the currency symbol as you're seeing it displayed on to our basic salary. Then the next field or the next field property is the input MASIC. The input MASIC, this controls how users enter data into a database. For example, now when you look at this this input MASIC, it is always used whenever the user enters data into the database. For example, let us look at the telephone. Now, when you look at the telephone number, and we are considering to use the input MASIC, let's say we're using a telephone as our field that we are considering our field property. Let's say you're dealing with the input MASIC, and our input MASIC is going to run as a phone number. So we'll consider to use the country code, which will have a plus 256 as the country code, and it will be represented according to the numbers we want. So we'll represent the numbers with the zeros. I'll put that. I put this as well as this. Sorry. So this is how our contact is going to run with the default country code as we enter in the records. We'll go to next, and we need this placeholder to be represented. So we'll say with the symbol in the MASIC. We'll go to next and finish, and not forgetting to save the changes. So once you're entering in your telephone number, you can see how it is represented. So we'll have our digits. For example, we have 703. Then we have 96, then 333. So it will now be represented like that. If we have another contact, we say this number. So it will have an input MASIC. This one is what we considered as our input MASIC in the telephone number field. So that one can also be used when you're dealing with the search fields. Then the next is the validation rule. The validation rule, this is used to check for the value entered into a field as the user leaves the field. In this validation rule, only that data that obeys the rule is a valid entry for this field. For example, when you look at the sex field, we have the M and F. So we can use our validation rule field property on the sex. For example, let's say we're dealing with sex and we validate it to use a validation rule and say we say M or F as our validation rule. Let me use lowercase. So we'll only have M or F, and as our text, the text that will pop whenever you enter any data that is not M or F, we say enter M for male and F, or we say O F for female. So we are validating our sex. Let us save the changes. So when we go to our table and let's say according to this name we put in any other letter, let's say letter H. So whenever you go to the next record, it will not accept, not until you either put M for male or you put F for female. So let us put back this is female. So it accepts because we validated our sex to contain either M or F. So that is how we use validation rule according to database. The next one, according to database, or we can as well validate before looking at the next field. Let us look at it also on our basic salary. So we'll only validate basic salary, which is going to be above let's say we consider above 400,000 according to our basic salary, which means whenever you enter any basic salary that is below 400,000, it pops a message that the data you entered is not valid. Let us use it on basic salary. So this is our field. We come down here and say our basic salary is going to be above 400,000 according to the data that will enter into the basic salary. So let us save the changes according to database and we go to our table. Let's assume we are entering in here some currencies and say let us put amount below the one that we use it. Let's say that. So whenever you enter any basic salary that is below the one that you use it to validate, it is not accepted. So it will always be popping you a message or displaying for you a message that the basic salary is supposed to be above its amount. So that is how the validation rule works, and the validation rule works together with the validation text. The validation text, this is the text message that you wish to display to the user if the validation rule is violated. So that's why whenever we're entering in currencies here, or any currency that is below the one that we validated, it is not accepting. So the message that pops is what we call the validation text. So let us put in here a certain amount. So it accepts because it is above the amount that we use it in our validation rule. So those are some of the data of the field properties that we use when creating database tables. You can use them where need be. For example, when you look at the format data type, you can also use it here if you need it. For example, we use according to the registration number. Our registration number will also use a format. That is, if you want to use it, we already talked about it from the beginning, so we can as well use it here and say it is going to run as this format according to our format. So there are many basing on how you want it to be represented according to your database. So when you look at this, it is presented with this format. There are a number of ways you can use your field properties when you're creating database tables. So allow me to end here. We shall meet in the next video, still talking about database. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Computer Elites Uganda. Please follow. You can share it with your friends such that they also get what we are talking about. Thank you very much. Let us meet again in the next video.